I'm going to read what Jesus says on the 5th of January 1944. When her last hour came, like a tired lily that after exhaling all its scents bends under the stars and closes its snow-white calyx, Mary, my mother, lay on her little bed and closed her eyes on everything surrounding her, to collect her thoughts in a last serene contemplation of God. Bending over her rest, the angel of Mary was anxiously waiting for the climax of the ecstasy to separate that spirit from the flesh, for the time decreed by God, and to separate it forever from the earth, while the sweet, inviting command of God was already descending from heaven. John, an earthly angel, bent in his turn over that mysterious rest, was watching the mother who was about to leave him. And when he saw that she had breathed her last, he continued to watch her, so that not violated by profane, curious eyes, she should remain, even beyond death, the immaculate spouse and mother of God, so placid and beautiful in her sleep. A tradition says that only flowers were found in the urn of Mary when it was opened by Thomas. It is a sheer legend. No sepulchre swallowed the corpse of Mary, because there never was a corpse of Mary, according to human sense, because Mary did not die as whoever lived dies. By divine decree, she was only separated from her spirit, and her most holy flesh once again joined the spirit that had preceded it. By inverting the habitual laws, according to which an ecstasy ends when the rapture ceases, that is, when the spirit returns to its normal state, it was Mary's body that went to join the spirit after a long rest on the funereal bed. Everything is possible to God. I came out of the sepulchre with no other help than my own power. Mary came to me, to God, to heaven, without experiencing the sepulchre with its horror of lugubrious rottenness. It is one of the most refulgent miracles of God. Not the only one really, if we remember Enoch and Elijah, who being dear to the Lord were abducted from the earth without experiencing death and translated elsewhere to a place known only to God and to the celestial inhabitants of heaven. They were just, but always nothing as compared with my mother, inferior in holiness only to God. That is why there are no relics of the body or of the sepulchre of Mary, because Mary had no sepulchre, and her body was brought to heaven. Just a pause there. So Jesus addresses a legend which involves Mary having a sepulchre and St. Thomas examining it and finding that were only flowers. So it's interesting that Jesus is prepared to distinguish between these legends and what actually happened. So we can say this is not a mere story that we're being told by Maria Valtorta. This is the historical event that took place. And it's interesting also that Jesus refers to Enoch and Elijah, particularly Enoch. We can take Elijah as a prophet, a really existent person in the time of, I think, Ahab and Jezebel. It's particularly interesting that Jesus mentions Enoch, because Enoch is there in the Old Testament, very early on in Genesis, before the flood, and it said that he's taken up before dying. And Jesus affirms this. So we can say that Genesis, all those chapters before Abraham, are not mere legends, and the patriarchs are not just characters invented by some ancient Jews. They, like Enoch, were real persons, really living patriarchs. And then, We have Jesus saying, because of the Assumption, that's why there are no relics of her body or of the sepulchre. And that is something that I've said quite a few times at Hyde Park when explaining the dogma of the Assumption and how true it is. Doesn't matter that it was declared infallibly in 1950, it goes way back, but of course one can say we don't find it there expressly in Scripture, though Revelation chapter 12 can be seen as a reflection of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. But to be straight about it, to be honest about it, we don't have the description of the Assumption itself. So, and we only have sometime after the last document of the New Testament is written, references to the Assumption of Mary. So Protestants say, well, this really didn't happen, it's a Catholic legend, and to declare it infallibly shows the falsity of the idea of infallibility residing in the popes. But in fact, we Catholics are famous for our relics. The head of John the Baptist, I'm not sure if there's just one, that of the head of St. Andrew, and a whole lot of other relics, the true cross, pieces of it, and the nails, and of course the Shroud of Turin, the relic of relics. But we have never claimed to have relics of Mary. No finger, no part of her body, because we do have limbs of some apostles and saints of various ages. And so we can say that there's no claimed body parts of Mary that we hold as relics, for the simple reason that we never believed she resided on the earth. She remained bodily on the earth in death. And in this case, therefore, the argument from silence works, since there shall be an abundance of relics of Mary's body, since she is the saint of saints. And there'd be a lot of money to be made. After all, you may be aware that there was a claim that somebody had a phial of the breast milk of the Blessed Virgin. Well, whether that's true or not is not really important. The key point is, it's possible somebody would have a relic of that. Hard to know how they get it. But if anyone wants to challenge the Assumption of her body from the earth into heaven, they must explain why nobody was saying there were relics of her body, when a lot of money could be made by trying to hawk fake relics of her body. It's just the fact that all Christians knew from the beginning she was assumed bodily into heaven. And though we've only found documents from the time after the New Testament was written testifying to this, doesn't mean we won't find documents that go right back to New Testament times that say this eventually.